Good evening.
Hello. Hi, Richard.
Hello.
I decided to put my East African Campuses Colleges Green Network sweatshirt on to give them a shout on this final day of It's For You, to let them know that, you know, we're with them as they have been with us all through.
I suspected you might. I decided to stick with the Italian outfit, but
Yes.
there we are. It's been a final day of
Yes.
It's For You, the antidote to what's been going on in Dubai. It's taking a little bit its toll on, I think, both our voices and our body. So we are here.
I'm not getting up tomorrow.
I'm not getting up early tomorrow. That's pretty clear, yes.
Yeah,
I think we have earned ourselves that particular rest tomorrow morning without any shadow of doubt.
Yes, I think so too. But we still have a show to do tonight.
The show must go on, as it always does at those very moments. And
we have a full program.
We have a full program, yes. Just like we've had every night. There's a little bit of everything, a serious tone, a more gentle tone, but it's a full program to round off the antidote to COP. And I think, as is customary, after 12 days, and I think you know this procedure by now, we will kick off with an episode of Who's Tipping Over the Tipping Point.
Yeah, we have to decide what's the best title. Who's tipping or who tipped?
I think Who's Tipping. It's a little bit more forward-looking, more hopeful even.
Yes, as opposed to kind of it's gone already.
Yeah, it's like there is always a moment in time, I think, when that's happened, and hopefully it's not yet.
Okay, so, well, here we are. Who tipped over the
episode?
Yes, who's tipping over the tipping point? With Nico, Richard, myself, and Katie, although I believe she was no longer present on this.
Thank you very much for watching Who's Tipping Over the Tipping Point. And in particular, thanks to Nico for keeping tabs on the scores and providing us with, as usual, a good laugh and a chuckle.
And I know this sound might be negative. I just imagine in the 80s, you wouldn't be running around for 5 minutes, charger. You'd be running for 50 kilometers walk. You know?
Where were you living in the 80s? I took a cab everywhere. Come on.
I was in the jungle.
It was still affordable.
I was living in the forest in the jungle in Zimbabwe. Couldn't get there.
Fair enough. Okay.
Oh no, this is Elon Musk.
Is this solar power beamed down to Earth?
Yes.
I am totally in awe of you, Katie. It's like, where did you go to school? Because I need to send my kids there, okay?
It's all the ideas, all the stupid ideas you have late at night about how to save the world, like just put on the screen. I feel you're a physicist, aren't you, David? But I cannot get my head around how do you beam electricity down to Earth? And I just think of this laser beam, and if somebody accidentally stands under it, they're getting their barbecue treatment.
Yeah. Exactly. So I asked my friends about this, and basically we all think it's a great investment pitch, but just don't get anywhere near it. So, okay, you guys, I think Katie might be down to that 5%.
Yeah, I think she's in the very end of her tether, so to speak.
Yeah.
She's run out of connectivity.
She needs this. This is what she needs. You know, the power from the space coming down to her.
For me, on this one, I'm just going to guess as a joke because I think this is a parachute to heaven.
It would make so much more sense in a weird way.
People be taking like. I'm thinking about something horrible here, but people say I want to go to heaven, but they don't want to die. I'm like, oh, cool. So how are you gonna do that? But that one, if it was a plane today, I think lots of churches would be on it. Because that's just a joke for climate change, isn't it? It's like,
it's incredibly futuristic, and one day it might actually even work. My fear is that we need to get to the day first before we can envisaging this working and being a good thing. But no, it's so futuristic. It's so far ahead of my understanding of how science works. I can't really even envisage it, to be brutally honest.
But there's this part that you're bringing up, which is, we try to do all these things. There's this idea that you do everything, but there's actually an order to doing them that you need to do, because we've only got so much carbon budget. We've only got so much amount of oil we can keep burning, and they all take that we should keep burning. And so all of these things, what they do is they promote the idea that in order to get to our future, it doesn't matter how much overdraft we get, it will never go bankrupt. And that's the bit where they fall down. And whilst it's really exciting doing all those things, and it's like, I'm a great time. It's like, was it Crimea or in Russia? The storms are coming, they're blowing away all their stuff. And so you don't actually get there. You might not actually get there. But what do you guys think? So if you had it, what happens is you don't need the exhaust barbecue anymore, because you just need to drive your car to where this beam is coming down and just put your meat in front of it. It'll fry it very quickly.
There is that. I just, for me, it's a science beyond what I can comprehend. So I'm sitting on the proverbial
like the iPhone.
Yeah, like an iPhone. I'm on the fence. I'm totally on the fence here, right? I think it looks fantastic, but my concern is not really that it will work or not. It's, will we still be able to use it by the time it's been implemented? Because we haven't done enough damage between now and then. That would be the way I approach it, really. So on the fence.
Yeah. Nico?
As I said, I'm not good on this, but I'm just worried if it go bonkers and then get too hot and then just barbecue everybody, because these things go wrong sometimes. But I think, in my own honest opinion, I think I need more time to actually. We need more time to actually understand how it works, and I mean, like, it looks nice. It looks nice. I was wondering which country is he pointing there, because I've seen the arrow. It's like it's pointing in Africa.
It's Australia.
Oh, that's good.
It's pointing to Australia. So the Aussies, they're the first ones to get fried.
No.
It's basically a giant microwave from space shining down at you. So anything within this region is going to get nicely cooked.
No, I know why it's pointing Australia, because Australia's got more space. It's got more land, deserts and stuff. So. And I mean, it's not that crowded. I think that's a good idea.
It's got no people there, right? So that's it's not where we need this, where there are no people.
There's no people there. It's like, there's people in Australia, but I mean, like, where is it pointing? Maybe it's like an empty desert or something. But for me, I'm looking forward to see it works. It looks nice, but I have no idea about all these kind of things. So, but the more people come to share the world, it's good. Well, I wouldn't give myself a point on this one. I'm gonna go 15 for myself. We'll give Kat 25, David 35, and Richard 30. Yeah, I think that's us for today.
It is indeed.
Yeah. So hold on. Not done yet. We gotta get the points out.
You still finish last.
I know.
Oh,
me.
this is a good one.
We started.
This is a good. It's a good lineup. It's a good lineup. The score looks very decorated.
It's a good lineup.
115, 130,
It's a good lineup.
150.
It is.
This is
Yes.
wonderful.
And Katie's out there way ahead.
Yeah, she deserves to
Yep.
be. Jesus, she's knowledgeable. I was actually terrified at
I
one
know.
moment.
This is
Yeah,
like, how on earth does she know all these things? I mean, what has she been spending her time doing?
That's
Yeah, well.
what she's amazing, man. It's like keep us going. I actually keep saying I enjoy this one. I never laugh so much while as well trying to do something. That's important.
No, it's you and me, Nico, and then there's them. Let's be honest.
Yeah, you know. For me, I'm just like I don't know. I like it to be like in a place where you don't know nothing. Just escape all those knowledges and jump into the top level. Just sit there.
I was absolutely in awe of her knowledge there. But
so, what's the next one, David? Richard, what's trying to plan?
I think we should do
one more.
I think we should
Monday.
do it. I've someone in the States.
There we are. That was the final episode of Who's Tipping Over the Tipping Point.
Yes.
And
so, what do you think of that? I mean, how have you found it? This exciting.
I found her absolutely terrifying.
Katie.
Yeah, the breadth of knowledge was quite scary, actually.
I know. I mean, we pretend to know things she actually does.
Yeah, that's the difference. But normally pretend works pretty well. It's taken me here.
Not when you meet someone who really does, and then you realize, all that pretending is just pretending, right?
Yeah, no, she was incredibly knowledgeable. She was also fairly brutal. She didn't mince her words with some of those products, which is great. Nico kept the ball rolling. He was very good, and we should really say thank you to him for that yet again, because he was terrific in his attitude and his ability to keep us in the match, so to say. Well, there was never really a contest. She just ran away with it. But apart from that.
Yes. I know.
So maybe that's something to ponder for the future, because I actually quite enjoyed it. I mean, much as I was at times at odds to understand humanity's futility in inventing these products.
What do you mean? You liked the barbecue. You wanted that one.
Well, that's necessary. No, let's stay away from the barbecue. The barbecue is needed. Let us be clear about that. The barbecue is needed. Others, not so much. But it was, I think, food for thought about the show at large, because it had some nice ideas and features in there. So maybe we shall return with one day.
Well, I'm sure we will. In fact, I've been talking with Nico and wondering what we can do. So if anyone watching has any great ideas, we actually have great ideas ourselves, really. I mean,
yeah,
I believe we do.
I think we do too. And
so
here we are.
So let's go back a little bit, and that's on that serious note.
Yeah.
COP28.
Yeah.
Overnight and throughout today, I'm going to show you this now.
You've managed to keep up, given the day we've had. I'm in awe.
We're trying to agree a comprehensive plan to close the gaps between where the world is and where the world needs to be. So, to keep 1.5 within reach. I think this is the bit. Overnight and throughout the day, the COP28 president and his team have been engaging in extensive consultations with a wide representation of negotiating groups and parties. This is to ensure everyone is heard. Have you noticed how it won't let you read this, right?
No.
and all views are considered. He's determined to deliver a version of the text. See, look at that.
Yeah.
That has the support of all parties. Consultations will continue until 3 a.m. Hold on, Gulf Standard Time. So that's 4 hours away. So that's going to be 7 a.m. Our time. So they're going to talk overnight.
Yeah.
We all want to get the most ambitious outcome possible. Our COP presidency will do whatever. This, have you noticed? They really just deliberately timed this so that you cannot read it. Right?
Yeah. Or you need to be an extraordinarily fast reader.
Well, basically, they don't want to, right?
Yeah, I think that's very clear. Let's be honest. But I'm not so sure why they would take you to that final page, because there's nothing there. There's just nothing there. So basically, what you're saying is they're still talking. They're still frantically chasing around, trying to find some kind of language that everyone can agree on.
Which, that sort of language is never really going to be one that works, right?
No. And what have they been doing the first 11 days, if this is where they find themselves now?
Well, those are, I mean, I'm sure they serve certain purposes, but the essence of what we wanted to bring out, and we had our closing ceremony, was this aspect. And with Professor Dr. Benno Werner, who is the UNESCO chair on understanding of sustainability. And he gave this talk where he talked about the essence that one size fits all approaches just make sure that it doesn't fit anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important. And that's the opposite of what we had found from our conversations, which is that individually we have all found our path. All the people who came along and talked. And most interestingly, as Sadaf described and other people have echoed, we didn't talk about the problems. We talked about how we are making the world better, how we are looking after our common home.
Yeah.
How in the face of the challenges we were doing this. We heard about how even in the dire situations, people were finding their way, being innovative, being creative, and coming together. And that's the essence all around. Recognizing where the issues are and coming together to make it better.
Yeah. That's very different than looking for the one silver bullet that will make everyone agree.
Yes. And of course, the one silver bullet that we do believe, you and me,
yeah, we do,
is our new approach. And the video that we failed to manage to present because technology once again won the day, as it so often does, which is surprising because after so many years of technology, you'd have thought that we've managed to conquer technology itself, but clearly no.
Clearly, we have some way to go.
Yes. So let us play this then.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. On a more serious note.
Yes. So here you are. How does this look?
Looks good.
This
Hope it sounds
right
good too.
Size.
Yeah.
And here we are.
This was a slide that we saw for the first time, more or less exactly 2 years ago when the IPCC's number 6 report came out. The circles added are actually our own. This is basically where we grow all our food today. As our temperature rises and the soil where we grow our food loses its ability to retain water. This is a recipe for massive geopolitical conflict. It was a massive wake-up call for me and David. And it was really the start of how we thought about what could be done.
And of course, a lot of these regions are actually not growing crops for food. They're growing crops for sustainable plastic, for sustainable fuel. So it influences our economy in a very fundamental way. Coming from an investment background and having had 30 years making money for big money, we've come to realize that if you've got something which isn't working, you have to do something about it. And what isn't working at the moment is the reduction in the oil and the gas and the coal production that we have. And to the story of the fact that we can triple our renewable energy by 2030. Even when we do that, we would still be increasing our oil and gas and coal production if our energy demand just continues on its path. Having come to that conclusion, we then started on thinking, how can we actually change this? And the problem is an economic one. Are people going to pay in order to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground? It leaves us with this sense that we need to create a very different sort of a market. And here it is. And we need to be able to create a market for keeping oil, gas, and coal in the ground. So imagine this. Imagine that you're about to go and propose and get married, and you're there going to looking for your wedding rings. What better way than doing that than to know that somehow, in one form or another, a fraction of the money you pay for that special wedding ring goes to keeping oil, gas, and coal in the ground. And in doing that, in having something like this, it lets everybody see that this is the thing to do, simply that. And imagine if you're an employer and you want to motivate your employee, and you want to give him a pay rise. What better way to really motivate him than to be able to say to him, look, I will match your pay rise to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground. And if you can do that, then your employee will feel in whatever work I'm doing, I'm looking after our common home. And I'm creating a better future for my children and for all the people around me. And that can be quite motivating. And Richard, what about you? What do you think about going to a Taylor Swift concert? How would you think of a fraction of that ticket? Because you go to music concerts all the time.
I think it fits very, very well into the overall picture of saying, when I spend my money, I'm going to spend it with those who I think make my life better. Now let's think about that for a second. I want to direct that spending towards those who make my life better. If I am worried about the future, and I certainly am, then I want the recipients of the money I spend on goods and services to actually be committed to taking oil, gas, and coal out of production and keeping it in the ground. So if I'm prepared to spend $100 on an artist I do want to go and see, it's reasonable that a couple of dollars on that ticket gets redirected towards keeping oil, gas, and coal in the ground. And that applies to all goods and services I can think of. And the mathematics is actually very, very simple. Every business needs its clients and customers, because otherwise you won't remain in business. And all governments need businesses, because otherwise they will not be able to raise revenue and provide the services that the citizens demand from them. So when all that fits together, and given that our economic model is based on us continuing to consume and spend money on these goods and services, we actually have enormous power as consumers of the world to opt to spend our dollar in the pocket with those companies who are committed to keeping oil, gas, and coal in the ground.
And the essence is, by investors knowing that there is such a market, that there is such an interest to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground through our spending. And as far as government is concerned, what this does is it actually increases our spending, and that's a good thing for our overall economy. But in doing it in a way that actually helps all the regeneration and the healing we need for our planet, because it's spending that actually goes to keeping oil, gas, and coal in the ground, as opposed to extracting more of it out to harm and poison our planet and all on it in that form. So this becomes a turning over, flipping of the table, and a new way of actually creating an economy, creating a market that actually moves everything forward, allowing people that choice for them to be able to say, you know what, the money I spend, I can choose who to direct it to. And if I see these people and they are part of the group who are redirecting it to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground, investors will be able to come in and will be able to say, you know what, these assets, they're worth buying to keep in the ground. And in that way, the innovations and the creativity would come along and say, how can we move and actually help ourselves to go forward? And that's where technology gets the backing into the fall, into moving everything together. And so it both liberates us and frees us from this tyranny of the climate. So that's our call, to create a market for keeping oil, gas, and coal in the ground.
Indeed. It actually is that simple. Make no mistake about it. It can be done. We have that power.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Well, there we are. A market for keeping oil, gas, and coal in the ground. That's what we need.
So what next?
Well, this is the point, I think.
I guess if you think about it, right? You need the investor to buy the assets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the investor to buy the assets needs to know that they're going to be sold well. Now, the kind of investor you want to buy the assets is clearly one who is more interested in having them kept in the ground than not.
Yeah.
And ideally, you want investors who are sufficiently motivated or sufficiently open, but whichever way around. But anyway, so you need the awareness there. So you need to create that story to create that.
Yeah.
Now, one place where they can currently sell it is if you buy one of these oil and gas and coal assets and you hold off from their production, you can argue the case that you're helping with the emission, you're creating offsets.
Yeah.
And this is a regulatory issue. Regulators have accepted this in some cases, although they may not accept it in all cases, simply because we are not yet in the mindset. And the dilemma over the COP statement is an example of this, is a demonstration of this. To think that not producing the oil and gas and coal minerals so that they are not burned to cause the emission is actually the right action to do. We are of the mindset, and this goes into the essence of subtractive change. Take away the source of the problem is better than solving the problem after you've created it.
Yeah.
We're in a world where we believe in solving the problem after it's been created by adding another layer on. So we tackle the aspect where we have burnt the oil. This has caused the emissions to arise. This is causing the problem on the planet. And so we therefore look for ways to extract it back. And here's the interesting fact. I was looking this up. Now, let's assume that I'm wrong. But this is actually seemingly to be the case. The emission created by creating something like 1 megawatt of electricity using coal or gas in that way requires you to use somewhere between 1 to 2 megawatts of electricity to take back out in carbon capture.
Okay.
So you've created 1 megawatt of electricity, you've created emissions.
Yeah.
It will now take 1 to 2 megawatts of electricity to take back the emissions.
Yeah, then what's the point of producing it in the first place if you actually have to use that amount of energy to then go and take the emissions out? That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right?
So you're now in an energy debt.
Yes.
And the point of it is so that you can actually say you can add more and more renewables and you're still in an energy debt. And because you're still in an energy debt, you need oil, gas, and coal.
Correct. And that way you will keep burning them. Yeah.
That's why the strongest proponents of carbon capture in this way comes from the oil and gas and coal industry itself.
Yes.
Hang on a moment. I think I have a call I need to take.
Okay. While David does that, let us ponder that question a little bit further. We put the poll out the other day, and we might have mentioned it previously when we said that if you produce 1 unit of renewable energy, how much of that energy produced should we be taking out from the fossil fuels? And we gave 4 options. Should we take all of it out, i.e. a 1-for-1 swap? Should we take 50% of what we produce out, i.e. half? Or should we take none out and keep on burning oil, gas, and coal as we did before? And the 4th option was actually an option we put in for fun, which was fairly outrageous, I thought, by saying, even if we increase our renewables, we should also keep increasing our production of fossil fuels. That was the question that got the most votes. Sorry, the option of the question that got the most votes. So a majority of people looking at this think that not should we only keep on adding renewables, we should also keep on adding fossil fuels. That to me seems fairly outrageous. But it was the favorite option of the people who answered the poll. So if that's the case, well, then I think we actually do have a very long and hazardous road ahead of us to get to where we want to come, whether it's net zero in 2030, 2040, or 2050. Because as long as we keep on adding a production of fossil fuels, there can never ever be a net zero. And like we have said before, if you produce it, you are going to consume it. That's a given. And you will keep on producing it as long as you can make money. Even if it's a tiny amount of money, we will keep producing oil, gas, and coal in a world where the producer still turns a profit. And that for me remains the fundamental flaw of the argument which bases its assumption that renewables will displace fossil fuels purely because they are cheaper. If they're cheaper, you will make more money producing them. That's a given. But you will still make money producing oil, coal, and gas. And that really is the heart of the problem, because it will be produced if you can make money from them.
So
now, that was a very serious matter to debate it.
Yeah. And you know, I think it's interesting to realize that some of these attempts to that we have been so what's the term? We've been so used to having resources all around that we don't actually do the right sums anymore. We separate ourselves completely, right? So you have this thing. If you the emissions you create by producing 1 megawatt of electricity will take you 1 to 2 megawatts of electricity to capture back.
Yeah.
So when you have created that, call it 1.5 or call it 2 megawatts of renewable electricity, instead of being able to use it to displace the 1 megawatt and have something more, you end up in a situation where you need all of that to go and recapture the emissions back.
That's why it doesn't make sense.
And well, not to you.
No.
But
no, it doesn't.
And this is the essence. If you want to reduce emissions, the fastest and easiest way is not to produce it in the first place. And if you can make money doing that, then you can go forward ahead. Now, in the world we are at the moment, the idea of carbon credits has to do with kind of like current progress in that way. So you can work on a carbon credit world where you say, okay, my coal plant is no longer operating, or my coal is no longer provided to the coal plant. And you can then say, well, that's so much emissions, that's not coming out. And you can sell that as a carbon credit to someone who needs to use, needs to fly, for example, to a typical situation.
Yeah.
So they go and fly. Having flown and they then buy the carbon credit, if they buy it from this sort of mechanism where you keep it in the ground, then this provides an income to the person who wants to invest in it. That's quite reasonable, because if I'm investing in it to keep it in the ground, that should give me the same value as if I invested it to use it in other ways. So again, the example of gold. Gold is used in our electronics, it's used in our phones and those sort of things. I can buy a ton of gold and actually sell it for other people to use to make all these devices. Equivalently, I could just keep it locked up somewhere and not use it. And it has that value for not using it. And in the case of coal, if you keep it locked up and not use it, then the value is the greenery you see around you, is the comfort that your children have. And it's your own comfort of knowing that actually you're not going to contribute. And not only are you're actually preventing any possibility of it ever being used and contributing to the devastations that we've been talking about. So now, to make that work fast, what you need is to go past the regulators. Because regulators have their mathematics, and their mathematics has to juggle between what they see as provable current activities versus just simply preserving it all. So, for example, if you go along to the regulators and you say, I want to look after the Amazon rainforest and not have it cut down, they're going to say, well, currently the rate of cutting down is so many football fields per day, or so many thousand football fields per day, whatever that rate is. And they would therefore say, you're preventing so many thousand football fields from being cut down at the most, therefore at the most you can have that. And that doesn't really help, because it means that as you get towards, that doesn't really help, certainly in the case of coal and oil and gas, because what happens is we all know we need to cut down much faster than that.
Yes, that's what the maths is telling us.
And not only that, we need to signal that it is ending. It's not just our current pace. And in fact, the problem, the right way to express this is, we don't know how to stop ourselves from using them at the moment, but we have to know it is ending. That's a different situation from squeezing us now and allowing it to keep continuing. This is one of these things. There's a tap that drips. You know, as it keeps dripping, it's going to cause a problem. So you can either go along and fix the drip, and we can't fix the drip because we actually need the water coming from it. There's no other way to control it. So that's how it is.
Yeah.
And the other side is you can actually prevent more water from coming into the tank, so that it will, it will finish off at some point. And then you have to plan, and you can plan for that. You can start planning ahead. At the moment, we don't do that. What we do is we go along and we say, well, you can try and fix that. You can try and prevent the drip a little bit, but you can't just stop it all, because we still need the water coming from it. And you're not allowed to stop the water from coming into the tank. Regulators will be seen as overreaching when they do that.
Yeah.
But that's where you come in. Not at all. That's where you come in.
Yeah.
Because you can buy those and you can say, okay, fine, I'm not going to let it go into the tank. It's no different from someone else buying it to say, I'm buying it so that I will put it into the tank. Yeah. Versus someone else saying, no, I'm doing it so it doesn't.
Yeah. But we need a carbon market.
Well, it's not a carbon market. I think it is wrong to call it that. As soon as you call it that, as soon as you use that name, people immediately think of how it is described at the moment. So you need a better name for it. You cannot call it a carbon market. It's a new market. It's a market to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground. It's a market.
But that's a name that's too cumbersome. You need something snappier.
Well, then find one, but don't call it a carbon market. It's a market for life. It's a market for our future. It's a market for prosperity. It's a market for genuine hope, and joy. It is
Yeah.
not a carbon market.
We'll see if we can come up with a name before the evening is out.
Well, yeah, we should think about that.
Preferably a one word, but I can also think of 2 words.
Which 2 words have you got in mind?
That I don't know, but I do know that most market people know of and can relate to are quite eccentric. It's a stock market, you know. Yeah, people can visualize a stock market. It's the
Yeah, but
FX market.
those are all about trading and commodity there for the purpose of using them.
Yeah, but it's
Here
the
is
village
a
market.
conservation market. Here is something to conserve it. Here is something to actually bring forward hope. So
Yeah.
you need that element in there, and you need to think of that. It's not going to work otherwise. So and before we started this, we had an interview with our friend Andrea. And
We did.
Joey, yeah. I'm going to play that to you so that you can think about it.
Okay.
And
that's fair.
maybe this idea of the market will come to your mind.
There's always
if we
hope.
do that. Well, I'm sure you will.
Yeah. And we might add that this was recorded just as we started the 12 days of COP.
Yes. So here we go.
Welcome, my name is Andrea Edwards, and for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to introduce you to a group of incredibly inspiring people. So check in every day, and we are going to be having conversations which we're calling the 12 Days of COP. Now, this is not my idea. I'm just your host. The brain and heart behind this are joining me today, and I'm very, very delighted to welcome Richard Busolato and Dr. David Coe. Welcome. Good to see you both.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, some people have already met you through me, but for those who haven't, do you want to both just give a quick introduction and as well talk about your book as well? Because your book is amazing. Who wants to go first? Richard, do you want to go first?
I'm happy to kick us off, although I'm probably neither the heart nor the brain behind this operation because, you know, he's next to me. I grew up in Sweden via Brussels and a few other places back and forth. I ended up in London about 27, 28 years ago. I've been working in finance all my career. I've been managing capital for hedge funds, banks, industrial companies, always with the same scope, which is basically to deliver high quality returns for my investors. And those investors tend to be pension funds, various insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds, and individuals through various savings pools. So that's my background, and how I ended up very much in this space is that perspective of risks and what we are actually facing going forward with regard to our savings and our overall lifestyle. And I think for the first time in my career, which spans, 5 decades working in markets and over 30 years of managing capital, this is the first time I've encountered an issue that you cannot sidestep or get away from because we're all inhabiting the same space, which is this planet. And previous crises, there was always a possibility that you could say, I'm taking myself out left field. You can't do that here. You are involved whether you like it or not, and therefore it's going to be imperative that we deal with this as quickly, as swiftly, and to the best of our ability as soon as possible. And I'll pass it over to David happily, who can talk us through our book. I met David about 6 years ago.
And thank you, Richard. Thank you, Andrea, for having us here again. It's indeed a real pleasure. Every time we have conversations, I learn something new. It's always thought-provoking. And you're one of the few people we've met who has such a broad kind of reach into what's going on around the world and is able to bring it all together. and then to have a conversation about it in a way that everybody can feel comfortable expressing how they feel without any sense of fearing, or might I be saying the wrong thing here, or any of that.
All right.
So that's
Thank you.
remarkable. So thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I really do.
And for Richard, let me show you this. Oops, cameras and which way they go. That's the book. The green screen is trying to devour it, which might not be a bad thing to do. But anyway, the title is The Unsustainable Truth. And Richard is too modest. I think when people talk about him and me, and they ask me, how much of this is me, how much of this is Richard, and I always have just one answer. Richard is one of those people that just makes whatever it is that you do better. So, so that's really the icing that goes on top, the thing that really makes it palatable to everybody, or indeed actually very attractive, and all of those. That's him along there. So without it, what we are trying to do here with It's For You and the book and so on is not there. But just a very quick word about the book. We've been working as investment managers for 30 years. So that's a considerable amount of time, considering the amount of crises and periods that we've seen. And in those times, we have had both the situations where we've been in the middle of it. In my first job, I was really part of a group that blew the world up, literally, basically. From the financial crisis sense, it was during '98, at a time when the Russian government defaulted, and it led to a cascade of events, all about the fact that we've overreached without realizing we've overreached. And that's one common theme to all the things. And in 2007, as we were heading into the great financial crisis, as Richard's talking about sidestepping, I stepped out of the financial industry because I saw that the same picture was playing out and I didn't need to be in that movie again. I joined it back in the depth of the European debt crisis. This was when Greece was blowing up and Germany didn't know where they had a leg to stand on, and France didn't know what to do, and Italy was praying, not me, in that way. And I was stepped back into it together with a friend, and we raised a huge amount of money because people saw us as the people who understood risk, understood when to step in front of it, understood when to step aside. And in 2017, when Richard and I got together, we started looking into sustainable investing. And after 5 years looking deeply into it, we left the industry because we realized what we are facing ahead from that world of the financial system that we are, and the money that we have that we've worked hard, and Richard is the first to admit he wants to keep the money he's worked hard, as all of us do. We do not see a way that is going to get us out of it without helping the other person first. And this is a very odd situation where you find that actually you are actually together because there is only one planet that we are here. And if we are going to step past this in whichever form, we have to come together first. And that's what the program It's For You is about. That's why we call it the antidote to COP28 in many regards, because it's not someone doing something, it's us doing it for ourselves. So thank you, Andrea.
No, that's great. So I think it's important that everyone understands both of your backgrounds, because you're very serious business people. And as Richard say, he loves capitalism. So you're not coming at it from a naive point of view, or because I have conversations with people and I'm like, it's so much more complicated than that. And reading your book for me was so fantastic, just for that big picture understanding of how the financial services industry, how it all connects, especially with the pension side as well. So I found it incredibly, like, if you want to understand the climate crisis, you've also got to understand the global economy. I think they're two things that need to go together. So, but we're here to talk about It's For You, and I'd love to just let's tell everyone what it is and why they need to get involved.
Okay, Richard, shall I take this?
Yeah, you hit it. Yeah, you do it much better than I do. So please tell us why we're actually doing this over 12 days of COP in the run-up to Christmas, and why we think it's incredibly important that all of us do our bit, because it's the only way we can actually battle this.
So the start of it comes from this aspect where we recognize climate is a thing. The climate devastation is a thing, and pretty much everybody around the world recognize that. The part where we come to is that collectively our spending is what drives everything around. Literally where you buy your tomatoes from. And it's basically an understanding on that. And whilst the governments are trying to talk about what regulations we can put in place and what everything else does, if we're not aware ourselves of that simple fact, it is ultimately our collective spending. That's what all the money that's going around is. Then we're going to miss the point that we have that genuine power. So over those 12 days, what we're calling on you to do is to redirect your spending to those you think are making the world better. It's literally who you buy your tomatoes from. There's nothing more fancy than that. But to appreciate that, there are three things which becomes very necessary. And it's for you as a program to try and bring those three things about. The first is you. How do you connect yourself with nature and dignity? Because our lives at the moment are so busy, as we talk in our book. There was a trip my son went on a taxi where the taxi driver and him were talking. And in the end, the driver said, I think they keep our lives so busy so we just don't have time to think, just so that we can keep us from thinking. And there's that element. So having that moment to be able to reconnect. And so we have programs of activities which we want to engage people with on that. So the second point is simply understanding a little bit more, having those conversations about what does making the world better mean. And we had a segment of our show we recorded this morning. It's called Who's Tipping Over the Tipping Point? And it's about, keeping the world laughing sustainably. And we have this part there where there's an oil platform. And obviously oil platforms, we do need oil. But what was happening was it was being transformed. It was changing its name from Hummingbird to Excalibur. And the reason it was changing its name was because they were having a wind farm built in order to provide the electricity so that we can pump the oil up with the renewable electricity. And you do have to ask yourself, if I support renewable electricity, am I supporting it to pump more oil out? Or do I think it will be better just to pipe that electricity directly to my home and avoid that oil along the way and use it to displace it? So those are part of the things about what does making the world better actually mean. And the final part is the part where Richard and I come from, because what drives how these things are used ultimately is what happens to the money we spend. So that's where we come in along the way to try and provide the kind of conversations that can help people understand what actually happens to the money we spend, why does it end up going that way, and altogether it goes back down to that thing we are calling on people to do, which is very simply redirect your money to those you think are making the world better. And literally, that's who you buy your tomatoes from.
Yeah, I like that. Now, you mentioned dignity. So can we just elaborate on that? Because I talk about dignity a lot, just from a refugee, displaced persons, treating people with dignity. But how are you referring to it here?
It's a very subtle kind of concept in a way. When we face the devastations from climate, we end up feeling ourselves very often as the victims, and we're very often feeling ourselves that we are in a situation where we want to find someone else who can help us along in that way. But the essence of coming together is to come together very much as equal, as people who all have a voice. And dignity is to be able to know that your thoughts matter, your voice matters, and to be able to hold ourselves and others in that way. Because if we don't think that's the case, if we think that only the right voices matter, however we think those right voices are, then we're not actually going to manage to go across this challenge ahead. But we are able to come together where all our voices are recognized to have the validity in the spaces they have. And then that will trigger us to try and understand better why those voices come about in that way. And in that way, what we will find is we can cut through all the vested interest that is blocking the transition, the move across. And most importantly, what it does is allows all of us to come together and turn the challenges into opportunities that we can face ahead. Yeah. And the essence of what allows us to do that is that sense we have of ourselves. So dignity starts from the sense of being able to identify, having an identity for ourselves. This morning I was speaking with a lady in Kenya, and she had been working on the female genital mutilation, trying to bring about equality in those ways. And she was saying, wow, she's creating all those education and all of those things. She realized that young girls were still being effectively sold off to be wives in that way, because they live in semi-arid area, the conditions are getting more extreme, and they weren't able to do that. And then she recognized that actually, you know what, we can grow our own livelihoods as a group. And then they started doing that. And that gave them the ability to empower themselves. And what that did is it gave them their voice.
Yeah.
And that's the dignity that you get. And it's not a dignity that comes from victimized, treating yourself as a victim. It comes from actually recognizing that you stand tall, no matter the situation. And what she then said is, when you take that attitude along, you see resources when nobody saw resources before.
I just read a fantastic piece on female farmers in India, where they the males have gone off to the cities to look for work, and the women have come together, and they're not actually recognised as farmers. They don't typically have the mobile phones. The men have them, and they obviously don't have funding. But they've come together, and they're basically taking all the fertilizer and pesticides out, and they've gone natural, and they're growing different sorts of crops, and because they're becoming more and more successful, and they're coming together. And that was something you said about the coming together. But you know, one of the things that there's a bit of a pushback on the individual contribution having an effect, right? And so it goes back to Edelman set it up as a PR sort of thing for an oil company. I can't remember which one. But I always say to people, there's 3.8 billion middle-class people, which is expected to grow to 4.8 billion by 2030. I don't know how that's possible, seeing what we're seeing in the environment, the escalation we're seeing. But there's a very, very large percentage of people who are sitting in this space who are spending money and contributing to the problem, whether it's how they invest or where they buy their tomatoes from. But so I just wanted to, you know, can you give people confidence that if I change, it's going to actually make a difference? Can you help people see that that's everything? You know, it's all coming together and doing it.
Well, actually, it's again, it's two things that it comes about in two different levels. And this is where Richard and I come along. We talk of this thing called transformation ownership, which is when we change the ownership of oil and gas and coal. And if you think about doing that, you think we can't do it. It's impossible. You know, this got to be governments, got to be those things. But ultimately, these are companies, and ultimately, just think about your government and the particular politics you happen to be in. Do you really want something like oil and gas and coal to be in charge of that sort of fickleness that there is? And so actually, when you go through that thinking, what you really need them to be recognized is that they are global commerce, much like our oceans and our air in that way. So the ownership needs to be transformed. To do that, the question that you constantly face is, as a gentleman spoke, he's very active in regenerating the rainforest. And he said, we literally eat oil. It's not true that we don't and we can't, because they provide the food, they provide the transport, they provide all the things that we need in that way. So how can you actually go about thinking transforming something like that if we, in our own little way, aren't able to say to ourselves, I can do without it. I can see how I can have a livelihood without it. So even beside the point of whether your action is going to have the ripple effects to everyone else and so on, for you to be able to say, yes, I can do that, that's how you influence another person. And what that does is it allows for the big finance that can come over and say, we can transform the whole ownership. And then you in turn can then say, yeah, of course you do that. Because I know how I can see a livelihood for myself and for my family and my friends. We're all together in that. We've got our microgrids working, if that's what it is. We can see how we can supplement the life. The women farmers, as you described in India, they're willing there to say, you know what, it's okay if we don't have the fertilizers. We can do that. The men in the urban area with the mobile phones are talking to each other about, how, oh gosh, we can't, because they haven't been able to take that step forward. And to take that step forward goes back down to the essence of dignity. The sense that I am an individual, I am not a victim. I can find resources where others do not see them.
Yeah. I like that. Richard, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, what David says is obviously for us pretty obvious how you need to go about things. What I perhaps would like to add to the discussion is that I have enormous confidence in mankind's ability to overcome challenges. History has proven that we have genuine capabilities of innovation and adaptation, that we can actually go forward even in very adverse conditions. So that I don't think has changed in any meaningful way. But what we are facing with the climate crisis is this, I would call it extremely naive belief that we can actually deal with the outcome later on, whatever it might be. For someone who has managed money his whole adult life, because it's the only thing I've ever done, is basically manage capital. It's an incredibly stupid way of approaching the risks you're running in your own portfolio. You just shouldn't go down certain directions, because if the outcomes are catastrophic enough, there is basically no way for you to come back. And we are treating the climate as one of those things that no one seems overly worried that it actually might get so bad that there's no point for us to recover and come back. And that for me is just really, really bad risk management. And how we ended up in a situation where policymakers all over the world seem to be talking about flexibility regarding net zero and balanced approach, and God knows all the terms they're spewing out. The naked truth in that, the unsustainable truth of it all, is that we are facing potential catastrophic consequences because of our failure to deal with issues up front. And there comes the individual responsibility, because the whole global economic system is basically made up of each and every one individual choices we make regarding our consumption and production. So if we are unable to change going forward on an individual basis, it's pretty stupid to believe that the system at large will do so by some crazy autonomous force, because it won't. Yeah. And we will have the ability to overcome using less oil, gas, and coal, because that has been proven throughout history, that when you constrain the supply and the availability of resources, we find other ways of being able to do what we want to do. It's just that it takes a little bit of time to adapt. And here, there seems to be, at least on the face of it, many voices who says we don't need to do that. We will fix it later down the road somehow. I think it's an incredibly naive, and from my working perspective, it's almost an insane approach to managing risks. And that for me is just bonkers, really.
Yeah, of course. All right, so what can everyone do to get involved? Look out for the hashtag It's For You. I'll put it up here. You can sign up and be part of this.
Yes, and let me try and put into comments or chat along. So there's a link to sign up, and what we're asking for people when they sign up, what you're doing to It's For You, and what we will be doing in that case is so that we can have you share and be part of our conversations and be part of this that goes along. And this is a very, very helpful thing. But really, it's about giving yourself a voice. Whether you sign up or otherwise, is to use those 12 days to find for yourself and give yourself that voice, and to feel that actually you don't have to be defensive about having a voice in that way, whatever it is. You don't have to push for it beyond what you think might be the case, and so on. But with giving yourself a voice, you're giving yourself that dignity to yourself. And with that, that's how our transformation starts. And reconnecting as we go on. There's an activity we did, which I urge everyone to do. And it's a very simple thing. And what it is to think of nature and think of dignity as gifts for you. Just think of that. What would that be? And then just get a piece of paper and some colors and express what that is for you on a piece of paper with some colors. And that's a very straightforward thing. As you do so, pay attention to how you feel, how your sensations, your mind, your body is undergoing a transformation with it, because you're reconnecting with what it is for you. And to express that into a physical, actual transformation, turn that piece of paper into an object. Make it into a fan so that you can fan yourself when it gets too hot. Make it into a box so that you can put special trinkets and special things in there to remind you. Make it into a star so that you can put on your fridge magnet over your fridge, and so that you can just remember every day of that connection with nature and with dignity. And that's the kind of things that we ask about. And of course, if you do that, then tell us about it. Sign up. There's a Facebook group called isforyou.earth. It's a public group. Just join along and share your experiences. The other things we ask for is connect with us. We want to create the ultimate book of trees. Now, this is about your personal story of tree. The tree you used to swing on as a kid. The tree your child is watering in the garden, and but you go along. Or the apple tree where it's still bearing your fruits after 15 years, or whichever it is, and write a part of that. So take an A4 page, put on it a picture of the tree, a date, when you got to know this tree, what kind of tree it is, what it's used for, good for, but most of all, write your personal story about it. And the idea is that we post all of these together, and then we end up with literally a physical book of trees. And that's the connection we want, the connection back to our own stories and connection back to nature. And it may sound odd coming from 30 years in finance to talk about these things, but the reality we have come to understand is we need to take the climate challenges beyond climate. We need to take them into our everyday lives, into our experiences, into our nostalgic memories, and we need to bring those forward to the next step. And to do that, we cannot simply treat the climate challenges as a set of problems to solve, because fundamentally it's about our own acceptance of where we are so that we can find the direction that's right for ourselves and take a step in that direction. So that's what It's For You is about.
I love that, the Book of Trees. I think it's awesome. I was just thinking back through all my tree memories. I've got some great ones. You've brought together an incredible group of people, and we're going to be meeting them over the coming weeks. Do you want to tell us about some of the people in the gang so far?
Yeah, obviously it's quite a diverse group of people, like you said. There's David and I. We have the co-founder of the World Climate School, a Norwegian lady with extreme experience about how climate works and connected to so many parts of the world. And she is very, very strong on the educational aspect, which we feel is super important going forward, because there actually isn't enough knowledge about these issues. Then we have a couple of African guys that have joined in. They all represent the EAC-CGN, which is East African Colleges and Campuses Green Network, an organization full of students and enthusiasm that are extremely knowledgeable. And that youthful energy is needed when you have two guys like David and me. So that that brings a very youthful aspect to it all. And then we have Pakistani girl, lady. Well, she's a fair bit younger than us, Sadaf, who is very knowledgeable with all these things that are technical and virtual and campaigning. She's been instrumental in basically orchestrating the way we approach and do and assemble our activities, because it's very important that It's For You touches on every aspect of our daily lives. So I think when you log on and sign up, you will find something that is for you within that whole program. And I not for a second am naive enough to think that everything we bring will be appealing to everyone in 100% of the program. And that's not the point. The point is that there will be bits and pieces in there that will really connect to each and every one of us, depending on our viewpoint about what's going on and how it should be tackled, and what are the things that actually give you real meaning and joy in life, and emphasize on those points. So it's a little bit like a vast program or a big newspaper. You don't read it from front to back page, but you will find enough articles in there that would tick your box. And hopefully that is what we will manage to do over these 12 days.
Yeah.
I'd like to add also that, there's no doubt, no mistaking about it. What we face is a challenge. What we face is things which is of great anxiety, that can bring a lot of anxiety and concerns to people. And in that way, we are hoping somehow that there is a magical cure and this is the way we go forward, and in that sense. But increasingly, I've come to the mind that actually the more important thing is ask what is going to keep us going in the right direction. When you get up in the morning, so that your day is filled with hope, is filled with energy and enthusiasm ahead. And for that part of it, what we also incorporate within this, in the middle of each day, the day starts in the early mornings. The live events are broadcast between 7 and 10 in the evening in Tokyo time, and then later in Pakistan time, and then later in London time, and one of those is repeated later in Los Angeles time, so that we go around the world. And at the start of the London time period happens to be a moment at 2 o'clock where you're just thinking of going to bed if you're out in the Far East, and you're just about getting up if you're far west in that way. And so that's the point that we've chosen to connect up in that kind of spiritual manner, not necessarily in any way religious or otherwise. You can do that in that meditative, reflective, spiritual manner, essentially as a moment where we can reach out to recognize that we are all part of the nature around us. And for us to do that ultimately, for me personally, lets me know that no matter what the conversations and the dialogue and the news reporting that may come out of COP28, and the failures and how people talk about the washing of this or the washing of that and whatever it is, that's the connection that we want to be able to reinforce each day and remind ourselves of the things that give us joy, of the reasons why this is something that we want to continue on, of whichever direction it comes from, preserving our capital, looking after our common home for our children, or just simply because we feel this is the thing to do, or I'm an entrepreneur and I happen to think that this is a great opportunity to make lots of money. Whatever it is, there is an aspect of this which is not about the outcome, but about being a part of it, because we are all a part of the nature around us, and that is what gives us that dignity. So we have that segment in there, and I consider that to be very important, is very central to all this.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is hard. It's a hard journey once you're on it to stay hopeful. So just that real sort of reconnecting back to, what it's all about and the things that give you joy, right? It's really simple. Yeah, that's it's something I've been doing a lot more. I've been much more present in the moment. Interactions with a stranger are much more meaningful, or just stopping and watching butterflies. As they pollinate my bougainvillea. So yeah, I resonate with that. So we're going to have you both back on the 12th day of this, and we'll
on to the. So that's a little bit of an abrupt thing.
Yeah. Technology again. You can always rely on it.
Yes. So absolutely, I think. And how has your experience of these 12 days been?
Tremendous in many ways. It's tiring. It's a very, very different work experience than I've ever had before. I mean, it's not like you're shy to work long hours when you work for a hedge fund and you're managing risk, because you work basically all the days and all the hours the market is open. But this was very different. There are lots of moving parts. You're trying to help out when you can, and at the same time you're doing multiple tasks, which is it's very different. But I also found it very enjoyable, actually, in bits and pieces, and also totally inspiring. Speaking to a lot of extraordinarily talented, smart, and driven people who are all sharing that bit within them, that they're trying, they see the problems, they're trying to do the right thing, they're very vocal about it, and they're very, very happy to show the work they're doing. And that I find is actually inspiring. So yeah, it's been a journey over 12 days, put it that way. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's what do I want to say? I want to say that obviously some things didn't work out the way we expected. That's the same as kind of every plan, and the problem with them to get punched in the mouth and that sort of thing. People will constantly surprise us by how wonderful they are, and there are two things as we embarked on it at the beginning. Two phrases that kept coming up. One was, people don't care. The other is, you got to think about the poor people in the global south. And what we heard was people care. They all care. And they all care about a future that's not just for them, but for all time. And the perception that this divide of global north and global south is simply a divide to stop us from coming together. Because the voices that we heard, nobody mentioned the problems. They talked about how they were looking after our common home. They talked about what it meant for them to be making the world better. Yeah. And in situations where you think, God, I cannot believe how you manage that, they're there with a smile.
Yeah.
They're talking about the steps they make, the way that they bring the communities together so they can all go forward. And it is unequivocal in my mind. The migration has started.
Yeah,
the vested interest, the interests that have relied on structures that have been fed through the way energy has been controlled, money has been controlled, power has been controlled, are being hollowed out. And what's making that happen is the climate devastations, because those in power in those local ways cannot stay in power under this situation. And that's what we're going to see as we go forward into these statements out of COP28 and those sort of things. They become less and less relevant because people have begun the migration. It's like watching the wildebeest undergoing their migration. You might say, oh, well, I'm going to control it. Don't you dare move until I tell you. I mean, can you imagine that?
No, I am not fancying taking on a wildebeest, let alone a herd of them, okay?
You'll be going around chasing them, saying, you stop, and then if you look around the other way, they'd have moved on the other side.
Yeah.
They may not move all at the same pace or at the same time, but when you are the one person who is trying to hold them all back,
thankless task,
you realize, the truth.
Yeah.
The migration has started. It is time for you to go and join it. And that's the sense I got very much from this.
Yeah.
With the Maasai, where they gave us some homework to do. Yeah. Our conversations on trust. The conversations with the young people about the world that they see. And the work that people are doing. Pakistan, devastated by the floods.
Yeah.
Up in the mountains, seeing the problems that they have. And yet, against the tide that seems to be running against them, They're there. They're saying, we go forward. We're going to do this. We know it's a hard task. There's no shying from it.
Yeah.
So I think
All
it
right.
calls on you and me to ask that question of ourselves. How much of this new market are we really going to go for?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
There is a change in sentiment out there, and you wanted to build and you want to see what role you can play. And at the same time, we need to earn a living. And how can we de facto capitalize on that in our ability to pay for our lives?
Yes. And what do you say to that?
There's a lot to think about and take on, and obviously there will be a bit of soul searching. No, actually, the first thing that will happen will be a bit of sleeping tomorrow. That is the absolutely first thing that's gonna happen. But apart from that, there's going to be a lot of sort of thinking through what the possible and plausible next steps are. Because there's a lot to take in. I mean, we've touched people. It's not exaggerating to say that we've been speaking to every corner of the world, really. And what you're describing is the uniform feeling is that one that people actually do care. And they care a lot more than a naturally born cynic like I thought when we started out.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. I'm trying to find the conversation we had with Arewa.
Okay.
You have that.
I have that. Possibly.
Do you want to play it and drop it into the relevant place so that we have it as a record?
I can check where I have it, if I have it. No, I do not have it, but I can find it very quickly. Or relatively quickly, let's be honest there. In the meantime, I'm thinking maybe, given that Andrea did interviews with all of us, maybe we should have a look at her interview with Kaka as well.
Oh yes, that would be very interesting. Please do, and then we can finish off with the conversation with Arewa.
Exactly, because I'm cognizant that she did a fantastic job with each and every one of us to actually understand our starting point and where we came from and what we were doing. So I think it's a good idea to ensure that we actually see all the aspects of everyone who was involved. And I do believe that Kaka has not been shown yet.
No. And
in the meantime, I'm going to find our file, which is now being uploaded, by the way. When we spoke to Aria, we spoke to her? I think so. And it was a very interesting discussion, and one where I think we should show.
Just one moment. I will try and find it.
Yeah. And then, as we come back, we are also going to round this evening up, of course, and hopefully send you away with a very positive takeaway from what 12 days meant for us, for those of you who have tuned in and listened to us.
Sorry, I'm having trouble here. I think you
Okay.
should find them. Can you just?
Now I'll
get
tell you
on?
what we're going to do
I
instead.
can't. I
We're
can't.
going to play one of my favorite clips here.
No,
Which
Kaka.
I've
Why
been
don't
holding- Sorry?
you find the clip with Kaka and let's do that?
I will play something while I go looking for Kaka's clip. So it's
Oh,
a
I
very
know.
short video that was shot. It's not even a video, actually, it's a collection of photographs that was being shot by a guy
Right.
that Collins got me in contact with. And Simon, which is his name, he's living literally up in the middle of nowhere in the province of Kajiado in Kenya. And he is very much a conservationist and environmental champion. And he's also a school teacher and the local football trainer. And they discovered that the local ostrich population was declining very rapidly because people were stealing the ostrich eggs, which apparently are worth quite a lot of money. So he and his young fellow conservationists set about protecting these ostrich nests. And connection up there was so poor, so he couldn't send me the videos. There was just no way we could upload it at any speed. So he said, I'm sending you photos instead. And first, there are a couple of photos being put together, and then there are a lot of photos of the ostriches and their nests. And then we used Larry Dwayne's music to actually put music to this one. It was done by David M. And I just think it's a clip that makes me feel pretty good about things. So we are actually going to play that today. It's a very short clip, but I like it a lot. So here it comes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh na 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 na. Hey, hey, hey. Tusipoziba ufa tutajenga ukuta. Tutunze mazingira na masandio sasa. To protect our environment. The future generations will judge us by our actions today. Ufa tutajenga ukuta. Tutunze mazingira na masandio sasa. We got to protect our environment. The future generations will judge us by our actions today. No, no. Nothing to smile about. Oh yeah. Ufa tutajenga ukuta, tutunze mazingira na masandio sasa. We got to protect our environment. The future generations will judge us by our actions today. Ufa tutajenga ukuta, tutunze mazingira na masandio sasa. We got to protect our environment. The future generations will judge us by our actions today.
There you are. Taking care of the ostrich population, which, to me is literally in the middle of nowhere. But I managed to get 5 minutes to speak to him when the connection was good enough. And I just thought he was a tremendous fella. And he's very, very passionate about protecting the environment where he has grown up and where he is earning his livelihood with his school children, and he got them all engaged in protecting the ostriches. And he said at one point we could only count like 13 of them in the whole area, and now there's more than 30. And that's because they actually set about protecting their nests. Because they're birds, even though they run. It's easy to forget. There we are. Now, hopefully, in the meantime here, I have managed to upload Kaka's video, which is still not quite uploaded. But
I beat you
Areabas
to
is.
it.
So instead,
I beat you to it.
did you? God, you got Kaka before me.
Welcome to 12 Days of Cop. My name's Andrea Edwards and I'm your host. And today we are back in Kenya, in Nairobi. And I'm so happy to introduce you to Wakili Kaka, who's a final year law student, I believe, but also a climate activist. So welcome, Wakili.
Yeah,
Welcome.
yeah. Thank you so much, Andrea, and it's really a big pleasure having me here. It's been really a very exhausting month with full flurry of activities here.
Yeah.
Backwards with lots of work, but I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm really hoping for to see what we want to do in the interview. Thank you so much.
Nice. All right, so let's start with the most important thing so people can get to know you. What your background? So, yeah, I know you're in your final year at university. So, do you want to just tell us what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah, so as you heard, my name is Wakili Kaaka, and I'm a final law student in the University of Nairobi here in Kenya. I am also the director and the founder of East Africa Campuses and Colleges Green Network, which is basically a network that turns climate actions into livelihoods. And yeah, my background also, I come from the pastoral community, so from some part of indigenous community, the Maasai people, who are extensively found in Kenya and across the East Africa parts of Tanzania. And yeah, that's basically what defines my background.
Yeah. Nice. I didn't realize you were part of the Maasai because I know in the last few years there's been some terrible situations happening there. So the fact that you're doing law, I'm sure, is a big boon for your community as well. So do you want to talk a little bit about what's happening with the Maasai at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I want to say that what the biggest problem that we face as the Maasai community is that the drought is really a big thing that is affecting us. And you know, for us, the livelihoods that we get into and our way of life is basically we deal with animals. Like we heavily depend on the animals, and that is sometimes when the drought hits hard, it ends up killing all the animals and all the sheep and all the goats. And it's really a big thing because the weather changes and becomes unpredictable, and it has been really a big issue. Sometimes when it rains, floods become a problem. Sometimes when the rain ceases, the drought becomes a problem at the same time. So either way, either it's raining or there's no rain, we are all either way affected. And this has actually formed some part of my my background call that rolls my sleeves to jump into, like, find other alternatives of livelihoods from where I fly from. And this is really some sort of motivation since I was young. And back in 2020, we really experienced very heavy drought, which my family, myself, lost about 220 cows. I always tell people that if you check on my Twitter handle, the pinned tweet over there, you'll be able to see myself and my animals at the back, piles and piles of carcasses of animals because of the drought. So that's basically what the biggest challenge the Maasai are facing. And then the other challenge is they end up losing land because we migrate a lot looking for water and pasture. So once you migrate, you might not come necessarily to where you were before. So before the partitioning of land and the laws existed and all that kind of thing in property and everything, there were not the subdivision of boundaries. So the Maasai people end up losing a lot of land because of the nature of movement here.
Yeah, the paths to migration, which is so important, right? All right, so I know you're still young, and it was a long time ago for me when I had my first epiphany, but what was the first moment that you realized that we were in trouble from an environmental perspective? Because just from your cultural heritage, you're so much closer to the land than the vast majority of humans on this planet, right? So was there a moment, an event? Was it the drought 2 years ago? Was it something else? What made you sort of realize you needed to get involved and to become such a powerful climate advocate or activist? Sorry.
Thanks, Andrea. So many things happened, and you know, from every country, unlike many other countries in the whole world, my community in the ancient times did not believe in the power of education. So our parents would prefer taking a kid to go to look after the animals other than going to school. So it was a big thing. So by then, people did not really value education to where I come from than the other tribes. So you'll find that anytime a child gets an opportunity to go to school, my parents will sound like it's a punishment. So instead of, so they think they are rewarding someone who's going to graze the animals. So that one who wants to go to school, they punish you to go to school. So they think going to school is punishing you basically. But the one who is going to look after the animals, they're actually doing a good thing to them. So what happened is, literally, us as a Maasai people, do we really have any other source of livelihoods completely rather than the animals? That's basically what we depend on 100%. I can say we don't have, like, just the way the other people will like, let's say, get into things like, let's say, circles to like let's say banking and all kind of thing, maybe borrow loans and all that. For us, we don't necessarily have all that. We 100% believe on the animals, and this is really what made me to like champion for my people, champion for my country as well, and now stepping into the global, being the global voice and actually African continent as well. And the turning point is just go back to what I just mentioned a few minutes ago, is that we've been in the phase whereby the only animals that were left in my herd were only about 16 animals, and we are quite many in our home with 6 children, and we heavily depend on all these animals for us to they sell the animals for school fees, they do it for food. And that particular moment is when I opened my eyes and realized that if there is nothing big I can be able to do, then at least I can be a voice which can bring the change. And that is the point, the moment I decided to like create awareness. Back in the village, I used to have a small community-based organization called CBO, and the basis of the CBO was to basically sensitize communities, because they just saw a lot of burning of charcoals in where I come from, and this had led us to like cut out of a lot of trees, and this one led to a lot of changes in weather. We no longer receive rainfall and so many other things. So back in the village at the level of the CBO, I had mobilized so many things. I had like having women indulge into small merchandising enterprises like beading and beadwork and many other things. The alternative for me doing this was to ensure that I have got an alternative creation of livelihoods other than the animals themselves. So that is basically what pushed me to this. And then I went ahead and I talked to the local banks in where I come from, and the women formed a self-help group within them, and then the bank will give them a small loans, and then those loans they will take them and then return in small grants, and then they sell the beads. Look at the for market, they sell the beads, and through the beads they'll be able to take their children to school. So today, if you come to Kajiado County, there's a lot of inspiring stories for women back in the village. There's some children who have already graduated from school because of the work that they decided to do. The other part is basically we were also looking for an alternative way of for food insecurity. And what I did is we realized that there are so many other avenues. Like, for example, we could, instead of keeping a large number of animals, we could basically put few number of animals, but which are drought tolerant, and they can be able to do what is called multi-purpose. They can have milk and meat at the same time, rather than just meat. And then we also trained the people back in the village to ensure that they can do kitchen gardens. There is not much water, but they will grow vegetables in the sacks, which ensure that there is no waste of water. So any water that is used, they recycle the water to ensure that there is proper usage of that particular water. So growing slowly, that is what motivated me. I went ahead since I joined university back in 2021. I mobilized young people, and now we have got a network that surpasses over 40,000 young people in East Africa who are doing a lot of advocacy. We have actually been engaged in so many high-level events. I was appointed as the Climate Clock Head Kenya, and I was also appointed as the African Climate Summit work stream on the thematic youth. and many other entities came through because of the kind of the hard work that I said take a step ahead to make sure that I bring the voice.
Wow. Well, good on you, Dales. That is amazing. And it's like, just, for anyone listening, this, it can be done. It can be done. It's just the will. And I'm sure are your parents very proud of what you're doing, even though they weren't necessarily always sort of supportive of the whole idea of education? Do they value it now?
Yep. So they're very much proud of me, my work, and lots of things. And in fact, they were even astonished for me for the first time to get into an aeroplane. They were really happy because such was a history in the village. Like a young man coming from the village, and for us as Maasai, we are distinguished with how we dress. So the first time I went to the airport, I went with my regalia, my traditional. And I turned out to be a tourist attraction site. Everybody was taking pictures of me in the airport. They were wondering, who is this?
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Good on you. Oh, well, keep going. And if there's anything I can do to help support you, let me know. So let's just move on to COP28. There's been a lot coming through. There's a lot of antagonism. There's a lot of cynicism. There's some possible positive paths. We've still got some ways to go. But anything jumped out at you so far that you think is important?
Yeah, I first of all want to appreciate the fact that the milestone we have come is really inspiring, because sometimes back where we were, and I really want to. I always, anytime I get an opportunity to speak in a webinar, in a conversation, I always really thank our president, for example, William Ruto, because it is the first time, for instance, in Africa that we are speaking from one united voice. After the African Climate Summit, the African voice was united, and through this, I think in the past days, in COP26 in Glasgow, and that's this conversion to COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, there's so many things that are happening. And being a law student, I've really been following on backdated then when COP conferences started. And I have really been, because in 2015 is basically after the treaty for the Paris Agreement, is basically where these things are proud and seems to have really a good view of approach of things. If you look at, I don't know that you got an opportunity to read through the Paris Agreement. Article 9 speaks about the climate finance, which has been really a big conversation all across the world. And basically the idea of the degree Celsius that they discussed on putting greenhouse gas emissions for every country was also something to consider. But if you look at the way things are, I always say we do not have end-to-end and scripted kind of a legal framework that makes this function. These factors are come out through, because the concept of states coming together, speaking about something, and then materializing it to work is something too different completely. Coming to COP28, I have seen quite things that I think I can say they are quite promising. One of them is the idea of loss and damage. We have hope that maybe by the end of the 12 days of COP, they're going to implement, because in as much as people are, there's so much politics, in as much as we do not want to put this across. The truth must always stand out. There are countries that really facing climate crisis, and it is not because of we're not blaming anyone, because climate change is equally the same everywhere in the world. But we are saying that this is the truth, that the developed countries basically are contributing to the climate change, and we are all aware of that, and that is the truth. And as per the laws, if you breach the contract, there's always, of course, there are consequences for this, and they're the same people who came with an agreement that says for anyone who breach the contract in terms of heavily industrialized countries are going to increase the greenhouse gas emissions and many other things, then they should create a repair fee for the people that are affected. So first is the idea of loss and damage. We are seeing it coming out, materializing, and we hope that it's going to work. And then the other part that has opened the whole conversation is basically the area around GCF, Green Climate Fund, and I think if it can have a framework to ensure that it does not necessarily have the top notch of the government, then this can be devolved down to the common mwananchi. A common mwananchi is a man from the lowest man on the ground. You know, we call them here in Kenya hustlers. Hustlers are people who work with very small jobs and maybe they live below $1. I think that's the best understanding for you. So if it can be devolved to that particular level, I'll be able to appreciate it. And then the other fact is, I want to thank the fact that we now having so many young people involved, which we always say that they're the solutions for the climate crisis that we face. And we are seeing these climate activists in different levels. And through this, we can able to say that, unlike before, the young people can also be part of the policies making. And I really appreciate this. I had an interview a few days ago with Climate Live, and even I think tomorrow I'm speaking in a high level events just here in Kenya, but I'm going to be doing a webinar where we have the presidency also for COP, Sultan Jabbar, and I'll be able to deliver also a key message to ensure that no step at a time the young people will be left out in terms of decision making. And those are the few outcomes that I have seen that are actually coming out. And then the other part is, I also love the fact that the outcome of Geneva for all the world indigenous people, they'll have a platform. So the houses, they are going to be having a meeting this coming Friday for all the indigenous people. Even that recently there was a meeting in Geneva, which brought all different parts of indigenous people to put a voice, to put a note on a paper, and also to share out their demands and their grievances as well.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely 100% right. We absolutely have to embrace our Indigenous brothers and sisters, or we won't have a chance. I really believe that. So, but best of luck. I hope it goes really well. It's so, I said it before, but it really is so inspiring to hear what you're saying. And also that mobilization of youth and that unity of Africa is really coming through strong every time I speak to people. And that's not something we're seeing in other parts of the world. So I think it's a sign that obviously you're experiencing so much so soon and dealing with it and mobilizing into action. So I think you guys will lead the world ultimately, because it needs to happen. All right. It's for you. It's what does it mean to you? How when you talk about it to your friends and family, how do you express it?
I want to say it's for you campaign is the way it's for you was born. It was in a very unexpected way, because the ultimate goal for me, first of all, meeting David Koh, was that he came for the launch of my network, East Africa Campus and Colleges Green Network, and we did this because I have that kind of a gift in terms of networking and talking to people in different levels. And that's the first time we met with David. With David Koh, he came to Kenya all the way purposely because of the launch of the ESCGN that we are having. And it was really, we had really mobilized different people and business community as well. And then we also had government officials, like we had invited the cabinet secretary for sports and youth affairs to be in attendance, and that is how I met with David Koh. And then we took a couple of rounds around different places in Kenya. He even visited my home, where he was so much interested on the issue of the water for Masai, and we went home. We check around how things look like, how the animals drink water, and all that kind of thing. And then afterwards, he came back to the UK. And then during the African Climate Summit, we were organizing again East Africa Campus and Colleges Green Network were organizing for a side event. So we are engaging in a couple of so many events within Nairobi, where the high-level events was happening for all the African heads of state. And we'd got a couple of side events, and one of the side events was the idea of transformational ownership. So he approached me and we talked, and we decided that we're also going to have a center whereby we're going to have the Center of Humanity and Dignity. And basically this was championed by Transformational Ownership. And this is forms the biggest part of their book that they wrote in Sustainable Truth. And that is how basically after the 12 days, after the 4 days of ACS, is when the idea of It's For You came about. And through that, I think we've been building up the biggest part of this conversation has been supported by the young people in my network and across East Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, Bujumbura, Burundi, and many other parts. And actually, even outside Africa, because I remember we talked to Malawi when there was Freddy Cyclone. I got an opportunity to go to Gambia during the LOICO. So it's an interconnected kind of an approach, and that's how it for you was what came about. So after ACS, we decided that you're going to do. David Coe is really did not believe on the idea of how COPs work. You know, he really different kind of a person in terms of believing on what the outcomes of conference of parties works and all that kind of thing. Of course, for me, I also had an idea of like how political sometimes, COP conferences look like, because there was a time I had decided I'm going to vie for some position as a young person in the UNFCCC. And one of the things that came to my mind is there's this young lady who was appointed to be the United Nations envoy's voice. Her name is Alicia, I think Alicia, yeah. And the way she was elected is that they did not consider so many factors as per where one's fly from. And that's the moment I realized that it's quite political in nature. And we decided that we're going to do this to ensure that even though not everybody can fly to COP, at least you can participate in this particular kind of an event. So that's how It's For You was brought about. And I can be able to say that it was a vision shared together, me, David Coe, and Richard, of course, although Richard never came to Kenya, but he was in the UK, but of course he's been in the meeting and so many other things. So we've taken time to speak to so many people. I really been able to bring a lot of network, lots of people. I was engaged in a Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. Not sure whether you know about it. It's called PACJA. It's one of the biggest organizations in Africa. And we spoke to the executive director, Mithika Mwenda. We also spoke to Safaricom, which is a communication network here in Kenya. And through that, we are able to do so many events across different parts. So that's how It's For You was born.
Right. That's amazing. So how can everyone get involved? And obviously, if you've got wonderful networking skills, like what Keely has, that's always a really, really, really good skill to sort of bring to the table if you want to build something. But how can people get involved?
Yeah, there are quite many ways that you can get involved. For example, for us, for now as we speak, we are having sporting activities that are going on. And if you look at our website, escgn.org, maybe I can put on the chat, you can check it out later. If you look at us, we were able to, we really believe that if you look at the chronicles, even back in the Bible, when Jesus was teaching people, he first ensured that these people are not hungry, and then now he can deliver the message, which is really important, because you cannot tell someone something when he's hungry, when there is no food. So what ESCGN does is basically the people who are passionate about climate, we find a solution whereby we can turn climate action into livelihoods. And through this, we are able to see so many things happening. We have got a startup inside us of young people who basically discovered they came up with sanitary pads for girls out of a banana fiber, and they end up winning the health prize winners, and they got $1 million, which is about 100 million Kenyan shillings. And through this, we are able to bring so many young girls to school, because beating the pads hunger was a big issue here, whereby girls could not afford the pads to go to school. And now it is a whole business, because one, the pads that the young people are doing, it's eco-friendly, because it's unlike the others that are made out of synthetic and so many other things from plastics. For this one, they are made out of a banana fiber. So you can imagine how eco-friendly these things are. And now we are having a whole center whereby every year we'll be producing about 400 million pads for the young people. So we are going to be, we'll be selling this. We'll be selling these pads to the public health facilities here in Kenya. One pad goes for 30 bob, unlike the others which go for about 50 shillings. So one, we are very friendly in terms of pricing to ensure that we also cap the market. And the other part is we also want to, by the end of 2025, we want to create jobs for 1 million people here in Kenya. and we want to extend this to East Africa. So that is one way, because it must be interesting for people to willing to join. You know, it doesn't need to look boring. People need to see opportunities, see how they can utilize networks available. And by the way, we are doing this across the world. I'm really anticipating that one day I'll be able to step in these platforms whereby maybe it can be the steps of leadership also in United Nations. I don't know, but I feel like we are an epitome of change. So that is one way. Another way that we're doing, we have really having an extensive talks with so many organizations. We spoke to Adventure of Humanity, who are running so many networks with the Nelson Mandela and the late Michael Jackson. They had opened some sort of they normally do sporting activities. So what we're deciding to do is anything that comes across our hand, we want to turn it to be a business. So what we are doing is from next year, we will be doing sporting activities as a way to create awareness to environment, sustainability, and also as a way of creating livelihoods to the young people. So what we will be doing is we will be opening up this with we are merging this with the idea of music, like musical concert as we open up. And through this, we are targeting to sell over 100,000 tickets. That is advance and also at the gate. So we want to do this. We even want to invite the president also to attend. And then these games are going to be divided into 3 main sessions as per the seasons. We'll be having winter games whereby we incorporate this with rugby, football, and basically hockey. So those are the things that we'll be doing. So anybody who will wish to participate, there is a registration fee for them. And this money that is being raised in registration fee goes back to the network to ensure that it's able to make the network's operation activities work, and also to ensure that we are recruiting more young people who have got a voice, not left out, even in the most rural areas in different parts of the world, to ensure that they are able to continue this conversation. The other idea is next year also, we want to open a podcast. This podcast is going to be like pre-COP. Any COP that comes in, we want to consolidate the voices of the young people to ensure that even if you not get an opportunity to go to COP, we want to move out to the COP committee. As early as from COP 29, we will be able to be telling them. We also have a section whereby people can listen to a webinar. Even the presidency for whatever COP that is going to happen, we want to have a legal framework that says we would love to hear someone from Sri Lanka, the farthest place of India, the place like Latin America, who depend on mudfish, for example, as a way of livelihood. So this is their voices. They don't have money to come to COP, but this is what they would wish to see in the world that we want to change into. So I'm inviting anyone. It's for you is really a good thing that we all indulging into this. But more importantly, we love to have this conversation even extended to other organizations to ensure that we make it as interesting as possible to make the young people being the head of all this.
Yeah. And then spread those ideas around the world, right? I think that's the really critical thing, because it's amazing to hear about the success you've had in spreading so quickly across Africa, and I'll make sure that those links are in the show notes so people can really go and check out what you do. And when you launch your podcast, let me know. But yeah, voices. I mean, Antonio Guterres at the UN, he's obviously so committed to the voices of the youth. But there's a lot more fossil fuel execs there, so it might be a bit hard for them to be heard. But he's committed, right? And I think it's the answer. And the average age in Africa is so much younger than the rest of the world. So I'm inspired by everything that I'm seeing, but really hearing what you're doing. Seeing you on the United Nations one day, I won't be surprised, or maybe a president or something like that.
Yeah. I would really love to.
Yeah, you got the energy for it. So such a great privilege to talk to you today. Thank you so much. Good luck. Take care of yourself. I know you guys are doing a lot of stuff at the moment, and you got a big interview with the Sultan. So good luck with that. Make sure your voice is heard. I'm sure you will. And just a real pleasure to talk to you. And thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Really a pleasure. And let us know also, maybe with your area of operation, let's know how we can also, maybe through the podcast, you can always feel like also bringing someone like you from wherever you are also to talk to the young people as well. I feel like it's not a space that should leave anyone behind. Like that hashtag is really leaving no one behind. It's a very inspirational hashtag.
When
Thank you so much.
just the hashtag that you just said, during the pandemic, I'm in Phuket. So during the pandemic, it was 100% locked down. And of course, everyone in Phuket, they earn their money through travel and tourism. So there was just no work. And it was very sad. And we set up a community called One Phuket. And the tagline was, let's leave no one behind. Because I think this is the time we've got to come together as communities. In fact, community is our only way that we're going to succeed. So we've got to come together as communities, take care of everyone in those communities, including the people who are least able to take care of themselves for whatever reason. So let's leave no one behind.
All
right.
Let's leave no one behind. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
It was nice.
Uncommon courage should be everywhere. Uncommon courage stands to lay it bare. Let's talk about all the hard things.
There you go.
That was Vakili Kaka speaking to Andre Edwards. And now, by the inclusion of Vakili, you've had the chance to meet all the people really behind and around It's For You. So, we just ticked into our final hour, David.
Yes.
And we're looking for that message from COP28 to say that they've actually agreed on phasing out fossil fuels, but I cannot find it on the web. Are they still negotiating it, you think?
I'm sure it hasn't happened. I'm sure it's not.
No, doesn't seem like it. Sadly.
Well, Iram gave us wrote a press release on our event, and I've been adding to it or adjusting to it. The first part explains about climate and the weather and the differences. Let me just read out what I have amended to her writing. Dr. David Coe and Mr. Bislato, I guess you should have a first name as well, are investment managers with 30 years of experience at the highest level. They spent many years delving deeply into sustainable investing and concluded that our planet is simply unable to cope with this vast sum of money we invest, with vast sum of money involved. Their book tells the story of how this has come about and what to do about it. In 2021, the IPCC report convinced David and Richard that climate change is a major problem. To tackle this, we have to face the production and use of oil, gas, and coal head-on. COP28 UAE gave them the opportunity to find out if we are ready for that. COP stands for the Conference of Parties. This conference has taken place annually for 30 years. Governments have discussed how to manage our climate challenges, and over the years, civil society groups have become a part of the conference, a part of the meetings. However, attending costs more money than most people can afford. Hashtag It's For You was conceived to give voice to everyone. The planning started at the beginning of the year. Dr. David Coe and Richard Bislato designed a plan to see if we are ready to face head-on oil, gas, and coal. They brought a team together so that the Conference of the Parties can be at every village, city, and country. The final leg of preparation kicked off at the African Climate Summit in September, where David engaged with the East African campuses and colleges Green Network to reflect on nature and dignity. Following this, as COP28 approached, South Africa lead was hired as global coordinator, myself as social media coordinator, international podcaster, and Inga Matasanta, the co-founder of the World Climate School, helped to connect internationally. Collins Manyasi, Timor Dewa connected with the members of the ACCGN to reach to the networks across Africa. Together, we created 12 days of live streaming and recorded interviews. The events gave voice to women and men, young and old, from villages and cities from all the continents. There was no distinction of rich or poor. We brought faith together. Each day we had a prayer and meditation to anchor ourselves. The participants told their stories of how they are looking after our common home. They helped us to understand making the world better is not one size fits all. These stories reinforce for us the message that the migration to a richer world and a better future has started. The stories are empowering. They talk as one about dignity and joy, even in the face of the harshest climate challenges. They answer Dr. Ko and Mr. Bussolato's question in a symphony of a billion voices. We are ready to face oil, gas, and coal head on. I had an amazing experience. The agenda of humanity coming together to save the world and planet Earth is particularly energizing. After 12 amazing days, we celebrated this for you with a closing ceremony. Professor Benno Verlin, the UNESCO Chair on Global Understanding for Sustainability and founder of the Gender Declaration, joined us as the guest of honor. He reminded us that one-size-fits-all approaches to sustainability do not work. This was the truth spoken from the participants throughout the 12 days. Everyone's situation is a little different, and these differences are significant. Their voices resonate with Professor Verlin's words in a crescendo. We will attain sustainability because people are making it their choice. For Dr. Ko and Mr. Bussolato, it reinforced also the message in their book. We each need to experiment for the right path for ourselves. The closing ceremony finished with distributing certificates of participation to every participant. In the closing remarks, Dr. Benno said, all communities must stand together to achieve the goal of sustainability, and governments and non-governmental organizations and institutions must work upon this very serious matter, as one action of one man can make a difference. Salid Khalid, Inga Mehta, and Iram Farad were the three women hosts throughout the event. Ms. Andrea T. Edwards, social media current affairs commentator and podcaster from Thailand, made interviews with all the members of the hashtag It's For You team. Arewa Longre from Nigeria and Nicholas Majlub from Chile designed the graphics. Collins Manyasi and Timon Degwa from Kenya hosted the participants from Africa, and Kaka and other members of the East African Campus Colleges and Green Network make the virtual events into physical celebrations of festivals of joy that turn climate actions into livelihoods. Nico and Luvo.
And Luvo.
And Luvo, Katie Critchard, Critchlow.
Katie Critchlow.
Together with Dr. Ko and Mr. Bussolato, created a comedy segment. Who tipped over the tipping point? Who is tipping over the tipping point? Over the tipping point to ensure we all laugh sustainably. We can all laugh. Indeed, it was a good 12 days of work, Ian.
Perhaps we should try to launch Areva before we run out of time.
Yes.
We have his interview to run through, and actually when we spoke to him yesterday, I thought it was very interesting discussion and his perspective on, building a business and what that actually means in a place like Nigeria. So
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think, the one thing that we mentioned throughout, and the one thing we emphasize for ourselves as well, and in some ways we're spoiled by having had the opportunities of working within the investment business for such a long time, and also in its way also the opposite, that it has harmed us in a sense,
possibly
in that it's made us not knowing what we can do, if you know what I mean.
There's possibly an element of
that listening to his words is helpful. So do you have that ready, or should I
do have it ready.
Off you go.
Well, I have it semi-ready, so let me launch it for you.
Yes.
This was us speaking to him yesterday. There we go. So, Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So, busy day, I gather?
Well, and while I was also working on a landing page for a client, and I got a message from Andre this afternoon to make a video for the past visitors she has for what do you call it? The no show that she does every Friday. So actually quite a very busy day anyway.
Okay, good. Well, let's kick off.
Yeah. Tell us. I mean, I understand you do a lot of different things as well. So you're not just a graphics designer.
Yes. Well, I think I started off as an artist. I'm actually a very talented artist. So while in secondary school, I draw comic books. I do all kind of stuff, and so as far as I can remember, I charged for my services when I was in primary 5.
Really?
So, yes. I draw for my classmates and I tell them to pay me for what I do. So I've been doing it for quite a long time. So when I finished my secondary school, I quickly took myself to go and learn professionally as a graphic artist. And I think I did that for about a year, before I got admission into school. So when I got admission, that was basically what I was doing to, pay up my school fees. And I did my MD, my HND from the Polytechnic Ibadan. And I actually studied estate management. And so after that, I came online in 2007 and decided to not just limit my talent or myself to my local environment, to see what it takes to actually become a global service provider. And ever since then, I've been doing that. And it has really helped me to become more exposed to, all the different necessities or the different rules and regulations that deals with you as a service provider worldwide. So and I do graphic design, I do presentation design, I do web design, I do branding, I do consulting and so many other stuff. So I've been doing it, for quite a while. So I've become really engaged in doing all those things.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's and the thing I find remarkable in a way, as you say, is it's kind of starting from primary to be able to say, okay, I can make a living. In that sense, I'm sure you weren't thinking of making a living, but I think you had the right sense then in that way along. And the aspect where the whole a strong emphasis of what we had in this for you is about turning climate actions into livelihoods. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were conversing earlier, and you were talking about how you train people and they managed to have livelihoods as well, and so on. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that and how that got started and how?
Well, I think that actually started in 2016, 2015, 2016, when I was a freelancer on Fiverr.com, and I was able to, within the first month of my being a freelancer, I climbed the rank of being a level 2 seller, and within the first 2 years, I became a top-rated seller. And because of the experience I've been able to gather from conversing with clients, so I was able to create a course I called it the Fiverr Breakthrough System, that was more of a marketing course than, so it was more of a course that teaches people how to relate with clients, how to offer your services, how to do what is necessary. And before we know it, I was able to, a lot of people started sending me messages, they want to learn. And at that point in time, I was making a lot of money. And so it doesn't really make sense for me to make that kind of money and still want to charge people for the services I offer. So what I did was I took it upon myself and started traveling all over Nigeria to train people, and I was doing it for free. So I had the opportunity of training a lot of people because it was for free. So I went to Lagos. I paid for the venue of the training. I paid for snacks for those that are going to attend the training. So it was like a full-fledged training, but they were not paying anything. So, and it has been like part of my personal let me say like my personal style to do things by using my own money to do those things, especially when I know that it's going to be beneficial for the attendees. So I've been involved in NGO activities since around 2009. So okay. I've been involved. I go to motherless babies home. I go to home for the physically challenged, and I train them. I talk to them. So I do all these things. I've been doing it for quite a long time. So it has been something that has really helped me. And one of those things that I eventually came to realize was that the training I did for all those people in 2015, 2016, I kept getting positive, response from it. So right now, I can boast of having nothing less than 20, 30, 50 students that are very, very comfortable. So I have a few of them that are way richer than I am, way wealthier than I am, that I actually trained in 2015, 2016. Yeah. So I can go to their place, I can stay for like a week, 2 weeks, and I'm going to be fed every day without any issues at all. So the joy is so immense for me. So immense for me. That's
fantastic. That's an amazing part. Yeah. And we got involved because in many ways everything is linked to the climate challenges that everybody faces. Mm-hmm. And I know you deal with other things in that way too. So yes. I mean, how do you see the world as you see ahead, and for your children? I know your children.
One of the challenges I see with climate change, and especially when I look at my own local environment, the livelihood of a lot of people within my local environment is the type that actually causes, climate change. Because we have people here where that one of their livelihoods is by producing charcoal. And in order for them to produce charcoal, they have to cut down a lot of trees, which automatically, turns into deforestation. And then when they want to produce the charcoal, they have to make like a big furnace. They are going to dig the ground, put all those wood in the furnace and then burn the whole thing. And then there's going to be consistent carbon monoxide for like a week. So it destroys the forest, it destroys the environment. And one of the ways that I'm trying to see if we can solve this is to see if we can actually teach them how to do something else rather than doing what they are doing. Because what they are doing is they believe that's the only thing that they can do. But if they are being taught a different skill, then they'll probably leave that and do something that's easier, and help them make money, faster rather than doing, that. So there have been the issue of you not being able to convince people to do something else, and you not being able to stop them from destroying the environment, because that's their livelihood and they have to eat. So that's one of those issues that we face. Then another one is this issue of electricity. We have epileptic, like very bad electricity in Nigeria. So there are some places in Nigeria that are for the rich, and those people then usually get electricity for like 14 hours, 24 hours every day. Why people in the areas where I reside, if we are giving electricity for 3 hours, that's like Christmas Day.
Wow.
So I've when I saw Kaka said they didn't have electricity for I was like, you guys normally have electricity in Kenya. In Nigeria, we don't have electricity. I've been using solar since 2015. When I was making money on Fiverr, I decided I can't work globally by waiting for the electricity from the country. So I had to go purchase solar panels, do the installation, and I've used it ever since then. So this is one of those things that also causes climate change, because almost everybody in Nigeria that can afford to buy a small size generator has one. So we've had issues where people put their generator outside and then they get stolen. So what they do is they now put the generator in the house, and then the carbon monoxide eventually kills an entire family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've had issues like that, and all these situations is like the government or the political class are not even concerned.
Yeah.
So we need to look at how can we, as normal humans, try as much as possible to see how we can orientate people and let them know that you can actually use solar to provide electricity for yourself without damaging the environment, without risking your life, and your children's life. And that's part of what we have been doing with Impact Passion Africa.
Yeah. And is this view fairly beginning to be shared? The view you're expressing, certainly, that there's more independence in a way, and also the cleaner energy side, which is so what about for your children or the younger people around, how do they see, are they very involved with kind of saying with trying to bring about changes to their own lives, I guess?
Well, for the youth of this country, what we basically do is we always try as much as possible to organize programs that helps to orientate them and enlighten them about these things, about climate change, about entrepreneurship, about getting the right kind of education and exposure. So we do that quite a lot, and it helps people to understand more about what's happening out there, and not just be within the confines of the immediate environment. Because like they used to say, if you want to actually help people to get out of a particular mindset, you need to first provide for them those things that is the most the most important needs that they have. So if you want someone to listen to you and then take action from what you are telling the person, there must be like something that you use to represent what you want to, let me say, to exchange what you are trying to take from them. So we are trying as much as possible to get the youths involved and give them more orientation about what's really happening, in terms of climate change, in terms of the weather. Like last year, 2022, there were some very epic. I call them epic because the climate change was very visual. There were a lot of floods, that a lot of lives were lost. But a lot of time, the problem is that the government, the political class we have in Nigeria, what they always do is just, announce on the radio and say, they say the weather is going to change. people should be careful, and that's all. They don't take any action. There is no environmental action from the political class, and people just go about their daily stuff without really thinking about these things until there's a rainfall and then there's disaster. That's when people are really start listening to these things. So we are trying as much as possible to be involved in orientation, in getting people involved. You can see COP28 for this year. The Nigerian entourage that came to COP28, I think, was about 1,407 people. So you could just imagine what is the essence of 1,407 people coming for COP28 from a country that cannot boast of, being at the forefront of climate change activities.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. So they are only interested in looking for every avenue to embezzle money, to take stuff, and that's what we are seeing, and that's what keeps happening over and over again.
Yeah. I on the other side of it, what we have heard is many of the activities which from the grassroots, from people who are interested in doing things to help with what I've come to call the migration towards a richer world and better future, and they actually really do hollow out these embedded structures, and that's where the conflict really is coming in many ways. And we had a talk, and in fact I was just now helping to manage backstage on a talk about community financing on trust, which is a term we've given for potentially a blockchain project.
Okay.
And the thing about blockchain is it opens up transparency. And Richard, you mentioned, this morning you had the comments about transparency with Bronwyn.
Yeah, I think it's one of those terms that get sort of bandied around a little bit, but when you think it through, the forces that do not like transparency is because they always have something to hide. There is always an agenda that you want protected for really the reasons aren't very good. Those are the embedded interests, the kind of the corruption, the lobbyists, the other areas where you don't want any form of actual scrutiny into what you're doing. If you're running a good business, I was the CEO, I would be as transparent as I could to basically show this is how we run our business. I mean, yes, I wouldn't give away a recipe if you're a drug maker or whatever, but that's a different story. But I would be totally open about what the channels we use to sell stuff is and procure stuff. It's like transparency is paramount if you want to gain the respect of the marketplace. People don't like opaque structures for good reasons, because it means that you have something to hide.
Yeah. So we're obviously very grateful for the help you've given us.
Absolutely.
In doing all the things along. And how have your thoughts about this, what we've been doing and been?
Okay, you my thoughts about what we've been doing so far.
Yeah.
Okay. When I looked at the project It's For You, when you brought me in and I joined the project, I was really very, very much involved because of the fact that we need to come together as one voice all over the world when it comes to climate change. My client and my very good friend, Andrea Edwards, I think I've been working with her for the past 7-8 years, and she has always been interested, always been involved in climate change. And because I've been working with I've seen a lot of information. I've seen a lot of things that really needs action when it comes to climate change. And one of those things we see is that those people controlling the actions or the big box that is supposed to be used to rectify these things, they are not really interested in because these things actually bring a lot of money. Oil, gas, coal, they are trillion-dollar, business empires, and that's what a lot of countries actually, depend on. In the early 50s, in the early 60s in Nigeria, when we haven't discovered oil, we had agriculture, and Nigeria was a major exporter in agriculture.
Yeah.
And in fact, part of Nigeria's history was that Malaysia government came to Nigeria and took the palm oil from Nigeria and took it to Malaysia, and now Malaysia is a world export in agriculture, and Nigeria cannot even boast of these things anymore, because immediately they discovered oil, there was this oil boom and everyone started just stealing money and all that. So one of those things that we have come up with under It For You is to try to see how we can create an orientation, a blueprint that every country can use. And when we have that blueprint, we can now use that to see how we can purchase all these oil companies that we can also be part of, and then to also see how these people will stop or reduce the amount of explorations they are actually involved. Because one of those things is that the companies just come together to talk about how to it's like trying to say we want to see how we can pay for the damages we cause.
Yeah.
But those damages that they cause are always devastating. They always destroy things. So companies that produce oil, they actually pollute the waterways and turn the waterways into toxic waterways, killing all the fishes, all the aquatic animals, and then they come and say they want to give $10 million for us to clear the waterways after killing all the aquatic animals. So it doesn't really make sense. So what we are doing is very, very amazing, and I'm very sure that with all the sessions and all the videos and all the stuff that we have done, if we continue to put out those content to the world and we continue to share it everywhere, I'm sure there is going to be a lot of changes that we'll see in this coming year 2024, as long as we keep on being active and we don't relent in what we are doing. I'm very positive that we are going to see a lot of positive changes in 2024. So from what I'm seeing with COP28 so far, I think the companies are getting a little bit serious with their commitments, but we only wish that their commitments would actually turn into actions so that we can see the changes that we want to see in the upcoming years ahead.
Well, I mean, from that side, I have to plug ourselves in that, Richard and I are seriously interested in creating a new market to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground, where people can, when a couple gets married, this is my idea. They're committing to a future together. Let a part of that money that they spend for their wedding ring. If they haven't have choice of buying it from someone who use a part of it to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground, versus someone else who won't. Who would you want to buy it from? And it's something which is meaningful in that way. And I think this is where having that perspective really opens up the empowerment of individuals that goes back to what you were talking about, the transparency for the governments and the businesses to realize we can always direct our spending, and that's such a strong signal. And I think that more than demanding that they do the right thing, is actually to walk with our wallet, put our money where our mouth is, and says, I'm going to buy my tomatoes from this person here because I know him and he's part of my community. And you just go along and you heat up your greenhouses and you use huge amounts of electricity when they could be used to displace the oil and gas and coal that we use. It's not about how you are doing the good thing. It's about how you empower another person to do the good thing.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what you were saying about your training. And now they are able to have their livelihoods.
Exactly.
And what that brings you.
Exactly.
And I think that's such a great example, and that's a great statement, practical, real statement of how by empowering another person to be able to make the better choice, you end up being able to go and visit, you can stay.
What I'm thinking of for my own, because I'm a co-founder for Impact Passion Africa. So what we are actually planning for next year is we are trying to see how we can actually organize a few trainings that will help upcoming the youth to have something meaningful. And we are trying to see how can we create the training in such a way that it's not just going to be any training, it's going to be a training that helps us to promote climate change. So we are looking at training people on how to become solar installation experts. We are looking for how to train people on how to actually make solar related appliances. So we are looking at train people on how to be productive in terms of creating things that will be there's a lady I know that's a friend that actually does this creative art using junk. So she goes to where we have junks, and junks create pollution, environmental pollution, and all that. And she brings all those things together. She takes all the plastics. Plastics will never expire. They will never rot. They continue to create problems. So she takes plastics, she takes tires, and use it to create artwork. And then it beautifies the environment. It also creates value for the environment. So we are involved in most of these things, and we are always trying to see those creative people that we can liaise with, that we can collaborate with to do more. And we want to also plan on, taking it out of Nigeria, going to places like Kenya, going to South Africa, getting involved with other NGOs and seeing how we can come together to pool resources, ideas, and expertise together to make the world a better place for one another.
Yeah, that's great. I think those parts of reaching out in that way, I think taking climate beyond climate is what we've come to recognize. When people I think there's a genuine movement going on, and so I'm very positive about it. It's like you say, and this year the conversations have shifted because the rich countries have been flooded, and the rich countries have burned, and farmers in the rich countries have been threatened by what's going on.
Exactly.
So that movement is happening along. At the end of the day, the truth is coming out. You cannot hide. You cannot run.
Yes.
You just have to be. And if you stand by yourself, then you have no one support you. So I think that's beginning to be appreciated. So I think it's really very positive in that way. I do think that we still need this part of being able to show to governments that we can take it forward, rather than to say the governments need to take it forward, because the layers of politics, what you call the political class, the layers of that class are just too are like a treacle. They just don't flow. They will eventually move, but they just don't. You know what Trump calls drain the swamp or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Except he himself is one himself, but that's his term.
Exactly.
So well, thank you. We know we've taken a lot of your precious time, and we're really grateful.
Indeed.
And just want to say thank you also for helping. And
Yeah.
just really want that opportunity to say that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's actually a pleasure. It's a roller coaster ride, and a pleasure when working with several people from several environments, with several needs. And I've always loved having that kind of. When I left freelancing in 2018, I really missed, the adrenaline of having messages over and over, having to wake up right in the middle of the night. Let me quickly do this for you. Then I go back to sleep. So it's been very interesting. I really enjoyed myself, working on this particular project.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to hear it, and we're
Yeah.
really pleased to have been able to work with you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Absolutely. You've been a
Thank you
great
so
part of the team. So thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
And yeah.
Take care, everyone. See you in
Take
the
care.
morning.
Okay, see you tomorrow. So we are all going to have a session together tomorrow, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Everyone is going to be there.
Everyone's
Okay.
going to be there. Come along. Yes.
That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well, Arewa.
Areva was a great help during the 12 days of COP. Also one of the people that worked in the background, but was almost ever present during those 12 days.
I was struck by the way he talked about how in his primary school he was making money, drawing comics for people.
Yeah.
That's a very kind of entrepreneurial mind.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's going to be an interesting year coming up. Copper is going to be quite scarce. I think the quantum mine problem is going to hit
Mhm.
in Panama.
Yeah, it's not going away.
No.
Despite a lot of noise and bullish rhetoric coming out, it has not really. Nothing's changed. Basically, it's still not online.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to come back. I think that's going to be reissued. We are hitting this part of where our mineral demands are hitting into communities, and this is one of the aspects about this migration going on. The reality is we cannot force the pace of this. The pace of it has to come in a natural way, and governments trying to force the pace of it, COP trying to force the pace of it is all meeting problems. But the pace can accelerate as soon as you recognize this. And that's where this market to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground can really be helpful. And again, what word are you going to say? Do not call it carbon credit.
I know.
As soon as you call it that, you've lost.
Perhaps it should be mineral preservation market, but
No, it's unattractive. You want people to buy it when they're going to a Taylor Swift concert. You want people to buy it when they're buying their wedding rings.
Mm,
You know, save the planet or whatever. You know, save the children fund, right? Remember that? Those sort of things.
yeah. Yeah.
Happy world. Could
Happy
got it,
world.
you know, happy world. Yeah, why not? I mean, that's what you want. Joyful.
Not
You want it
entirely
like
commit.
you want it like Candy Crush.
What is Candy Crush?
You don't know Candy Crush.
No.
There you go. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a name that people like.
Okay.
That's what you want.
Something
You know?
people can relate to. Something
Yeah.
people can
Or
identify with.
yeah, TikTok. You know.
Mm. Then again, I'm normally totally the wrong guy to ask about these things, but
You can't. I mean, you know, you can't say that. That's just not appropriate because that's just admitting defeat before you've
No.
even started. It's just a rationalization. You're as good as anyone else. You just don't want to think about it.
I like the idea we're calling it the market because it's
Yeah,
what
but
it is.
it's not carbon.
No. We'll think of something. I think it should be something with preservation or conservation or
Too long, too staid. It's too staid. You want your, you know, you want it to be. It's like a crib, you know, kind of something that hits your early 20s and late teens, or even your, you know, tweenies and so on. And you want to come from there. You want to come from the. You want the most natural people.
yeah.
You know, preservation and conservation is not the term that young people think of. They don't. They want a better future. They want to conserve whatever it is, the status quo.
No, because it's not working for them.
That's why you don't want the word conservation and preservation, because they imply the status quo.
Then again, they are much more fearful about the future than our generation is.
Then you need to give it something so that it's not fearful. So dispel that fear. Dispel the fear. Or something, you know? Lift the curtain.
Perhaps not, but
No, but that's how you get towards it, right? You see what you
Yeah.
can take it from, lift the curtain, and you see what might come along. And strawberry cake, you know, starburst.
it has to relate somehow to the subject area, I think.
No, it has to relate to the emotions of why you want to buy it. It's like what Brian was saying, the numbers don't matter in the communications game. The communications game is what conveying the numbers through the stories that people can attach to. So what are the stories? What is the story that you want to tell with this? What is the story for you? And the story is not how this is the way we manage the risk. That's not the story. The story for you is I want to look after my money. That's your story. You know, I care about my
Correct.
children. That's your story.
Yeah.
It's not about how you manage the risk of your portfolio. That's not the reason. The story is behind that reason. So you need to reach behind that reason into the real reason. And that's the authenticity that Bannon was talking about today. And that's the authenticity that people facing the hardship sees very readily. And that's where the name would come from. There's nothing fancy about the name. As in, it's a very plain name.
Yeah. It's entirely possible.
It's like Hummingbird.
The oil platform.
Yeah, but more the Hummingbird, right? It's not
Yeah.
Excalibur, because that's too brutal.
It is a forceful name, I'll say that. But,
Yeah, but it's brutal.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what we can come up with, I guess. We shall see. Now, there's still nothing out from Dubai, I gather, as I just scanned through the news.
Watch this.
Dignity is the key to unlock your consciousness towards the environment. Yeah, nature is alive and nature has feelings. Don't you hurt its feelings. You are human and just stop being the reason why nature ain't healing. Good does not come from having good intentions or even by acting on them. But good comes from accepting that the good
Dreaming of a day when we shall heal the world. Transform yourself, it's for you, it's the solution. A limit to oil, gas and coal makes me happy. This world is all we got, so we must save the planet, save it now. Yeah.
Good originates from accepting that there are limits. Good comes from limits. Rethink those choices, chunga vile una purchase. Think of your consumption. What's the point? I mean, transformational ownership is for you. It's for you, yeah. Are you ready now? Are you
Dreaming of a day when we shall heal the world. Transform yourself, it's for you, it's the solution. A limit to oil, gas and coal makes me happy. This world is all we got, so we must save the planet, save it now.
Yeah, dancing in the rain. What gives you joy? Only my challenges. What gives you joy? Being alive. What gives you joy? Having fun. Hey, 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 hey. Yo, transformational ownership. Yeah. Hey yo, listen, everyone, you are welcome to the
Dreaming of a day when we shall heal the world. Transform yourself, it's for you, it's the solution. A limit to oil, gas and coal makes me happy. This world is all we got, so we must save the planet, save it now. Yeah.
That's a great clip.
I like that
Very,
this word
very-
is all we got. That could be the name.
Well, it's definitely true. There is no, escape, emergency exit really that you can take off to. For better or for worse, this is the place you're invested in.
That's
And
Twig. 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 No, TWI. Something like that. This world is all we got. TWIAWG.
yeah, twig sounded better than twig. I have to
Yeah, but
confess.
that's kind of a spelling of twig, right? Twig.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the biggest singular takeaway you have from these 12 days? Is it that the migration has started?
The migration has started so clearly. When you hear, when I hear, and the one clip I will play back, Aggie, that Go guides.
Yeah.
When you start talking about how they're working with the communities, bringing forward, taking that female perspective, the gender perspective, the eloquence and confidence of someone like that.
Yeah.
In talking about it. And in the challenges they face, where teenage girls, young girls, preteen, whatever, are caught up within, the injustices.
Yeah.
And to face those things like, sex for fish and sex for food, as she talks. And then how to deal with it. And to talk about that not with anger, but with energy and drive and joy, in knowing that she is taking the world to a better place. Climate is eating away at all the vested structures that we have. It is bringing empowerment to people on a local level everywhere. And we are confusing it with the need to try and force a unified pace on that 1.5 degrees when nobody believes that 1.5 degrees is possible. And in fact, it's not.
It's simply not. 1.5 degrees died in Glasgow effectively. That was the last chance. And
it died way before that. It probably died in 1965, to be honest.
It depends on what measures you're prepared to take. But 1.5 degrees is gone, and with all likelihood 2 degrees as well on current trajectory.
No, more than that. I mean, honestly, I had this thing I was doing. I will show you that a little bit more with the math side of stuff. When you actually look at the real numbers and the projections of them, we are nowhere near. We are fooling ourselves in somehow thinking that we would be able to make transitions in that kind of a pace. Because it is an enormous gap to close. Yeah. And so the realistic part, the genuine part where we can help, where we can be a part of this, is the role we have been playing to allow what Benno Werner was talking about in the way that we've come to understand it ourselves too, that emergence of transformation rather than the the drive, the regulatory drive for transformation. And we still haven't heard, I'm not sure what statement is going to come out.
Won't be out before we have to cut that broadcast.
But very likely it's unimplementable. Whatever comes out is essentially unimplementable.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Because you're going to try to fit
square
round uneven object that it just don't fit.
You need oval packs for oval holes.
Yeah.
Square packs for square holes. Triangular packs for triangular holes.
Yeah,
and that's how it will work. And it will come through, but it won't come through in this way. And that's our main thing. So my takeaway from this is the migration has started. And it starts from the individuals everywhere. The path that we need to bring on, and for bringing the market to reality, to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground, is we need to find the language to reach the developed countries. We know this message reaches the people in Pakistan, reaches the people across Asia and in Africa and places. It's the developed countries. It's the language amongst our own children. They are the ones who reject this because they are still seeking a pound of flesh, because they believe the injustice is done against them.
While in reality, they've actually kind of won the lottery.
While
Yeah.
in reality, the injustice is done against everybody.
Yeah.
And is in accepting that, which is to accept there is a limit, because the injustice is that there is a limit, and so unfortunately that means we can't all have the same as what you and I had.
No.
That was our lottery win. We
Yeah.
happened to have been born at that time.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. Not one bit.
And bringing that to an understanding to the developed countries will substantially change the ability for this market. So we need to be able to think about the investor story. We need to think about the fund story. We need to think about the popular market story, and bringing all those together. So it just becomes the thing to do. And that sets us up, as we think about all those things, into the right aspect of thinking about addressing the education of sustainability. Because it is not what is being taught.
Some way to close 12 days of COP. I thought you summed it up very nicely. That's it, folks. Thank you so
That's
much
it.
for tuning in.
Thank you. Yes.
Hope you enjoyed this as much as we did making it.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.